marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell.
Reefer madness looks a little different these days.
Cannabis stocks have been on a tear recently.
In just a few short weeks now, Canada will make history, becoming only the second place in the world to legalize recreational cannabis countrywide.
We now have a date to use pot, October 17th.
And the pot story already touches almost every facet of news coverage.
Medical experts say they're already seeing a cannabis-related spike in emergency room visits.
Could have a big impact on Canadians who travel or even work here in America.
Media outlets in Canada smell a good story, and several have been hiring reporters specifically to cover the new cannabis beat, enthusiastically in some cases.
I think people should just try it. But even if you don't want to try, I mean, it's like, honestly, it's harmless. You should just try it.
But is that the way the beat will be covered? Or will cannabis journalists give it the same critical look other beats get? Solomon Israel is the cannabis reporter with the Winnipeg Free Press and its cannabis website, The Leaf News.
So Solomon, let's begin there. Are you advocate or critical-eyed journalist?
No, I'm not an advocate, although there are certainly cannabis reporters in Canada who are, shall we say, more advocate-y, but I try to take a critical lens. I wouldn't advocate for anyone to use any substance that they don't want to use.
This is a new beat, as we would call it in the business, beats like politics, the courthouse, crime, whatever. But this is a product. Why does it deserve its own beat?
I think from a journalism perspective, this is more than just a product. And, as it said in your setup pack, this is something that touches issues of politics and the law and justice and medicine and health and science and, of course, business. So, the reason I love this job is that it really encompasses all those things.
These roles are just being filled in media outlets across the country over these past few months. What have you thought about the coverage that you've seen so far?
Part of the reason I got into it was that I was just disappointed in some of the coverage I saw. Coverage that treated cannabis either as just a joke, which is kind of understandable because it's been sort of treated as a funny object in our culture, or reporters writing stories that were alarmist, overly alarmist, and maybe lacked some context and some counterpoints, or stories that just treat it as like a business story because so many people are excited about pot stocks right now. And I thought that we could move beyond that as journalists and treat it a bit more seriously as a topic.
And yet people are going to draw a parallel with, a wine reviewer who says, here's my top 5 favorites for this week. I mean, are you expected to be a user to cover this beat? A user of cannabis?
That's a really interesting question. On the one hand, I would say that a wine reviewer who doesn't drink wine or a auto reviewer who doesn't know how to drive a car wouldn't be very good. On the other hand, a politics reporter doesn't need to be a politician and a crime reporter doesn't need to be a lawyer. I don't think that my bosses expect me to use cannabis or anything like that. We talked about the idea of maybe doing reviews after legalization. I'm not personally sure that I have the palate for that kind of thing.
Before I let you go, what do you think is going to be the single biggest cannabis story in the months ahead?
Oh, where to start? I think that one really big one is going to be, legalization is October 17th, and then almost exactly a year after that, we have a federal election. So as soon as legalization kicks off, a lot of things are probably, there's going to be some kinks to work out. Some things are going to go wrong. And I think the opposition conservatives are going to start making political hay with that before the next election. So I think that's one big story that we can expect to see over the next year.
Solomon, thanks. I appreciate talking to you and look forward to seeing your work.
Thanks for having me, Diana.